It's been a while, folks. Welcome back to the Glider CEO podcast. I am your host, Mark Michael, and we're just living. This episode is on repetitiveness. I don't know why I was inspired, but again, I'll tell you. So, in all the episodes I've recorded, I think we're over 200 episodes at this point. I feel like the message is the same, right? It's about breaking through, it's about your own insecurities. And again, if this is your first podcast, this is a guy talking to himself about how he thinks about himself and hoping that it helps you feel less crazy and more sane. And, repetitiveness is, I think sometimes it's construed as negative, but in theory it's positive, right? Like, wouldn't you want to be repetitive in a good routine? Like, wouldn't you want to have success if that's winning deals, to be repetitive? And I think, obviously the lens I was thinking about it was sometimes, in the way that you're building a company or, trying to get people to work together or whatnot, it's not enough to do it or say it one time, but it's a constant reinforcement. And then I think that's where like the whole idea of missions, vision, values, principles are in an org, because again, it serves as kind of like that guiding guardrail or like it's something that paints the idea of like how or why something is being done. And in order to reinforce that, you have to be repetitive. And so on the business front, that's how I think being repetitive is actually means you're doing something right, especially as you see others kind of adopt the principles or values that you set forth in founding the company. The other side of being repetitive is obviously with friends and family, right? I remind friends of this all the time. I remind family about this all the time, and I remind myself, more importantly than anyone, about this all the time, which is nobody is thinking about us as much as we think that they're thinking about us. Period. Nobody. And as much as we think we know what's going on in someone's life, we do not. And it's such a hard lesson because again, I think about when I'm making content or this podcast or videos or whatever, it's like what would have resonated with me in my 20s, 30s, mid 30s, now approaching into my 40s. Like what could I have told myself to understand, like, nobody is thinking about you. Like, you're free to move about the world, life, the way you want to move about the world, and friends or family, whoever can judge us against that or whatever, like, that doesn't really play. And tying that back to me, repetitiveness is, I think sometimes with friends and family, it's a little bit harder in the sense that if they just look at your body of, let's say, work, especially as you get more experience in life, have you made wrong decisions? Is there things that you've done that have made people be like, ooh, I wouldn't have done that? Again, as long as you're not hurting anybody, who gives a fuck if you were? Right? And I think that's the point. I think a lot of us get repetitive in the negative way with close friends and family because it's what's comfortable, right? It's what's comfortable, like well, I've always gone to this school. I've always done this traditional thing. I've always done that. And again, some of those are great. If they align with your values and what you want to do, right? Great. But again, the old cliche, and I say them lately about cliches, I said, if you're saying them, it means you're doing something right in life. And so with cliches is like, our time on this planet is short. We can argue long, I get it, but short, right? In the infinite universe. Are you really, 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 as many times as we've all heard it, gonna say at the end of my life, wow, I really regret that thing that I did not do, when you had the full power to fucking do it because of a tradition, because of whatever? And so I keep tying it back. To me, it's like it's repetitive, but again, sometimes with friends and family, when they don't understand what it is you're doing, you might need to repeat it to them. At a certain point, though, I will say, why? Why repeat it to them? For what reason? Because they don't understand? Why? Why would you let that take any of your mind space? Oh, they don't understand why you would move. Oh, they don't understand why you would take that risk in starting that business. Oh, why you would get that job. Oh, why, like who cares? Live your life. Yeah, I get it. We all want approval. Me too. Me too. Me too. But I don't need approval for me to sleep comfortably like I do every single night, more or less comfortably every single night if a cat doesn't wake me up. Um, is more around, did I put out into the world what I needed to put out in the 24 hours that I had in the day, and it's messy sometimes, right? Like a lot of ideas start, never finish, you know. Obviously there's some consistencies in my life, right? Which are obviously family and then of course business. Um, and those are great, 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 great foundations to build from in terms of confidence, in terms of just having that risk tolerance to take chances, right? But I will argue that the more that you take chances in life, the less people understand it because it's not, especially sometimes the people closest to you, that it's not, they don't have the experience from it. And so you're forging a new path and they want you to be on their path, right? Or they'll judge why against their own experience, which is extremely limited. And I would argue simple. And so again, in these podcast episodes, to try to keep it to the same theme of repetitiveness, if you want to bring them along for the ride, you just got to be repetitive about why you're doing it and direct about why you're doing it. And it's not one time, it's not 10 times, it might be 100 times, it might be 1,000 times you have to tell them, and maybe on that one day that they get it, they're like, oh, And by the way, I would argue sometimes you don't need them to get it. They should just, them sitting shotgun is maybe enough. I learned that lesson in college. One time I was with a really, really good buddy. We've drifted apart in recent years, but nonetheless, I think we're still bonded by those 4 years in college. And, we had a night and I was basically complaining to another buddy, I don't like the guy, I just feel like he's jealous, this and that. He's like, bro, he's not jealous. He just wants to ride shotgun with you. He doesn't care if you have a Ferrari or a jet, and if you do, he just wants to sit shotgun. He doesn't want what you want. He doesn't want what you have. Ever since that notion was planted in my mind, I always loved that buddy, because what other kind of buddy would you want, right? Of course, maybe you want someone that can help you get where you're going. I get it. But maybe it's nice just to have the person that wants to sit shotgun with you, And it's just like, fuck yeah, great car, great business, great this. Like, let's do that, Again, you don't want too many of them. Gets expensive. But nonetheless, that idea. And so, to me, if there was a punchline of this episode, was the more repetitive you are, the better. That's my feelings as of, June 9th, 2023 at 10:52 a.m. 8 minutes before my next meeting is, you're on the right path if you're repetitive. It feels crazy if you are, but it is what works, right? And it is how leaders communicate, right? I believe that leadership is good communication. In order to be a good communicator, you obviously have to be a great storyteller, but you're going to have to tell that story many, 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 many times over. And it feels crazy, right? I've literally said the story of my co-founder and I being business partners since we were 17. Every new-ish, call-ish, relationship-ish, because it sets the context, you know? And so, but like, I sometimes like, I get thrown off because I'm like, God, like, do people really care? You know, and you start second guessing yourself. And the answer is, in this podcast episode, is a reminder that repetitiveness is okay. You being repetitive is a great sign that you're moving in the right direction. And whether people want to be along and sit shotgun with you or not, you know, that's a decision you have to make at the end of the day. But, you know, I'd rather sleep easy at night knowing I put it all out into the world every single day, or at least definitely tried to, uh, than the latter. Have a great week, great weekend, great day, wherever you are on the planet. This is Mark Michael Gleiter, CEO, signing off. Peace.